This week's channel message from the angels is an important caution to us as we are heading into this great shift in human consciousness, as we are, as they say, on the precipice of some major events, major energies coming to the planet that are going to be really the moment we look back on and say, that is the moment that everything changed. As we are heading into this, they want us to not leave behind the lessons of separation. So this message is all about that. So welcome back to my channel, you guys. I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you who are new, my name is Ann Tucker. I'm a trance channel, and I channel from the angelic realm. And I do that by raising my awareness up as high as I can go. And then I go a little bit higher, I connect, and then those messages and healing comes through, and I share it here with you guys on YouTube. And this message is one in a long series of messages that are kind of the play-by-play as we go through week by week, heading toward this shift in consciousness that humanity is going through. So, and this message definitely caught me off guard because I hadn't really thought about this before. I hadn't considered what is the value of where we are now and what is the risk where we are going. Like they've said that where we're going, the new state of consciousness we will be in will be amazing and we will love it. And they said, yes, that is true, but we will not yet be perfect. And there are things about that state of consciousness which can be something we want to avoid, that we don't want to go into a state of unity where we lose our sense of individuality. And so this message is explaining to us how they would like for us to navigate from the point of our own understanding that we contain right now. So great message. I hope you guys get a lot out of it. I know I did. I also want to make sure you know, I am going to be live on YouTube doing a series of webinars. The webinars is going to be, they'll be similar. Each webinar, I just want to give you 4 chances to come, and they'll be at different times. So I'm going to be live on October 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific and at 4 p.m. Pacific. And then again on October 25th at 10 a.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Pacific. And I'm going to be talking about the looking at the shift in consciousness from the meta perspective, looking at the very big picture, helping to understand the great cycles that we are, and why are we going through the shift in consciousness now? Why is this happening? And what does this mean for us, not only personally, but for the collective? Also looking in depth at what really is masculine and feminine energy, because that is what this shift is all about the balancing of the masculine and the feminine. So helping us to understand that at a deep level. And I know lots of us talk about it, but there is a ton of confusion about what it really means. So I think you will come away from this conversation with a much deeper understanding of what that is and why it's important. So I'll also be explaining in more depth about my new Soul Convergence program, which is about balancing your masculine and feminine energies. So if you are curious about that program, if you have questions, we will be taking questions throughout the whole thing. So if you have questions about that, if you just want to hear more about it, please come, because it's a great place to do that. And even if it's not the right time for you to learn about Soul Convergence, you can still come and benefit a lot from having the discussion about the shift in consciousness. So again, those dates I'll put them in the dialog box below, and I will put direct links. So you can either find them by just coming to my channel, Ann Tucker, or you can follow the direct links, which I will put in the dialog box down below, the description box. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoy today's message. All right, so here's what they say. Beings be near. The forever time is beginning. The next instantiation of peace forevermore. Foretold from beyond the now has been an understanding of life and living as moving towards something, as enjoying the circumstances of now, but understanding that all unfolds towards some greater proposition, toward a peaceful expression of yourselves. The semblance of inhabitation, the sensation of having been given a time of reprieve, is ending, and the next now has almost begun. It is nearing in readiness, and you are starting, having, enjoying an understanding of yourself as on the precipice, as leaning toward a next culmination in what follows, what is following. We draw you now into conversation with ourselves, into the havings and doings of this next now. An operating understanding for yourselves you would wish, to have within yourself an enjoyable perspective, a circumstantial reference by which you can navigate to draw yourself toward the pinpoint of reflection, so that you may endeavor to understand, to be helping, to be crowned within the new reality as having arrived. And we would speak into this now for the purpose of your own following and foreshadowing, that the next now and its inhabitation comes to you readily. But the perspective you would share is yours and yours alone, and cannot be found or endowed or given. It must come internal. This you have borne with equanimity and understanding for long. But to know that in the next now, in its culmination, its point of reference for yourself comes from an understanding within what is now, within the self and what is endowed and given in harmony with this current creation. Thus, to move forward into the next now, you must start from where you are. You have been happening within the self an orchestration of growth. There has been a constant culmination with each wave of instigation, with each wave of light that has been endowed. And you are rising. You are moving within it. You are finding yourself attuned more easily to that which comes. But the point within must still rise tomorrow, must still rise to the new beginning, and you will orient from this. There is not an external reference point, is what we would have your understanding become. There is not a point on the horizon that comes to call you now. It must always rise from within. Thus, the point of reference for each human, for each being, will change, becoming differently. And you will find yourself on that the horizons of tomorrow are rising, are differential forms between yourselves, a sense of yourself as becoming differently. There are horizons between you which are conforming, which will be shared, which will envelop yourselves into a communal understanding of tomorrow. But even so, henceforth, you will be and understand yourselves as coming from a different point of reference, as having within yourself an origin point that is unique to yourself. We say this important information because in the tomorrow of your knowledge, all are forming into oneness. All become yourselves in tune with one another. In the becoming, the effervescent conviviality of sharing and union that will grow between yourselves can overlap and confuse yourselves and lay dim the point of information which is yours alone. And we would wish to share with you now, from where you are coming, from the moment before you are drawn to that point of communal understanding, that the point of your origin is remaining always, that you are differentiated and yet the same, that you are one and yet the many, that your oneness must be attuned to because your own pathway forward is differentiated from the many. Your origin, the main focal point of your life for your becoming, is unique and yours alone. Even after the culmination of these events that are coming upon the horizon, you will find yourself rising differently. The tune that calls to you now to march onward, to draw you toward an instigation of life and living in unity with one another comes for you alone. And you will find yourself drawn into the fold of communal understanding, and it will be enveloped and will be enveloped within it, and find the ease and reciprocity that originates here. And your own understanding will be gleaned from the horizons of the many, and confusion can unfold regarding the point of your own orientation. Where do you navigate toward? What is your goal? What is for you alone? And we say, remember now, hearken these times before, while you yet remain apart in your understanding and feel so enveloped in your own journey. To bring this forward, to hold this, guard this memory, that you may find it once again, that you may recall and hold within yourself the light of your own endowment, and may be remembered within the horizontal conformity of unity in tomorrow. We say this before it happens, so that you may draw inward by necessity and see that self you are and recall what was. And remember that in every instantiation of living, there is something to be guarded. There is something to be cared for, to be nurtured. There is always something of value in each experience of life. In this one that you are leaving, in this life and presence within which you have been embroiled, the greatest gift you will glean is your own comprehension of soul and self as separated. The sense of yourself as living within a world permeated by yourself alone. The experience of having been unbridled in your expression, of having the folly of the all encountered as something not the self. You have clarity of thought and purpose. You have clarity of mind and memory. No confusion have you borne of the crossing over and in between that can rise among the many who are centralizing in their thoughts and presence. Thus, we invigorate the sense of self and oneness within. We invigorate the sense of you and who you are, and the separation which can conform and remain, while replete with the understanding of your belonging to what is shared. And what is coming, what will be enjoyed, far engulfs the now in the greatness of your own enjoyment. There is much to be celebrated in the union with one another. But we say and caution the self to know and knowing that you will be engulfed in such love and celebration that much as you feel at the start of some new celebrated relation, much as you may lose the self temporarily, you will feel this same sense of engulfment. But remain should you not be attuned to what it is, or to what is you, to what remains at the center of soul and self. Thus, the goal for self, as your horizons change and become charged with the new potential, the horizons shifting, changing, engulfing, enveloping, welcoming you to a new endowment of shared unity which carries with it so many treasures. To draw from this now what must be treasured, what is the self and memory of your own separation, and to draw this into the union with the all. For the harmony evolves from many shared voices, a frequency of one compiled of the many, each one celebrated as itself. Maintain your harmony within and maintain your presence externally. We bless you each. We say thank you and goodbye. All right. So super interesting, right? I mean, it's a perspective I would not have had without them saying it. Like once they say it, it makes perfect sense, right? It's like, oh, of course. But I had never thought that. Like it had never occurred to me. And in the same way, like I always tell people, because as you guys know, I have moved and moved and moved in my life. Like I've moved house like 20 times in the last many years. Like I just move all the time. And every house I've lived in has had something great about it, has had something that I would say, oh, wow, I loved. Even like the crummy ones have had something really awesome that I appreciated. And I think in the same way, they're saying like every life we've ever led has had something that we want to take with us, like something that we learned or that is of value. And they're saying that this period that we have been in, the greatest gift, I think that was probably the most important thing they said in this, the greatest gift of now that we're meant to bring with us is the experience of having been separated, the experience of the veil. And they say because it gave us clarity of what it is, what is us, as opposed to what is everyone. And I think it's really, really interesting. A lot of times when the angels are doing healing, one of the things they will do, like in our peace bathing sessions, one of the things they will do, they don't do it every time, but one of the tools in their tool bag is to bring us upward in frequency to a very specific space where they call it, and sometimes they call it peace, which is why they call it peace bathing, but they call it a space of clarity where the only thing we can hear is our own self. So we have the experience of separation, which we have when we're embodied, but even more so because we're totally disconnected from this, from everything around us, from the collective consciousness, which we can still tune into, right? Which we still feel and experience even from behind the veil. So that place of when you can only hear yourself, all of a sudden it's like you can feel your soul much more deeply. And that is, I think, the goal of what we're trying to take with us is what are my objectives? What do I want to achieve for myself? And they're saying the orientation is we move into this new collective experience where they say we can share with everything. It's like we can participate in each other's thoughts. That clarity becomes harder to maintain, that we bear the risk of losing it and getting confused about what it is we want for ourselves. And I think that's very, very important. And they compare it later in the message to like being in a new relationship, where when you're in a new relationship, like you can lose yourself. You can start to compromise, and I don't need to have this or that, or what do you want to do, as opposed to what I want to do. And that some of that is necessary, but it can become to a place where you realize that you have set aside things that are important to you. And I think they're saying that being in this collective experience can be so powerful, like such a powerful, amazing experience, that we run the risk of losing that permanently, or losing it altogether, finding it really hard to connect to it again. So let's go ahead and break it down paragraph by paragraph and see what more we can get from this. You're saying, oh, Donna, having a great time in London. I hope that is so awesome. Hello, thank you for tuning in from there. That is super cool. And you're saying, excellent, great. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the message. I think it's a super interesting one. Okay, so here we go. They are saying, beings be near. The forever time is beginning. The next instantiation of peace. And I think that is really, really interesting, the forever time. So this relates to this idea, the next instantiation of peace forevermore. So if we are cyclical, why is peace forevermore? And I think that our growth in humanity, and I'm going to be talking about these cycles of development that happen. This is what really a lot of what I'm going to be covering in the webinars that are coming up that I told you about. I'll be doing webinars live on YouTube, October 14th, October 25th. And I'm going to be talking about these specific cycles. But I think even though we go through cycles, I think those cycles are an upward spiral, that as we ascend in our consciousness, we do have the potential for peace evermore. And I think that is what they're talking about. If we can make this shift, it really is about shifting humanity forward into a space that, yes, we will go through periods of more and less consciousness, the experience of it, that we will maintain our gains, which is a very exciting thought. So the next instantiation of peace forevermore. So they said, foretold from beyond the now has been an understanding of life and living as moving towards something. So this is that idea that we have known. Before coming here, we knew that we were moving toward this shift, this great shift we're going towards. They say, as enjoying the circumstances of now, but understanding that all unfolds towards some greater proposition, toward a peaceful expression of yourself. So we knew this when we got here, before we came, that we were on a path to try to express ourselves in this new way, in this peaceful way of being with each other. They go on to say, the semblance of an habitation, the sensation of having been given a time of reprieve is ending. So we've been in this waiting period, and that waiting period, they're saying, is coming to a close. And that waiting period has been like your whole life up until now. We've been waiting for this up until now. And they're saying the semblance of an habitation, right? Like we've been in this life. We've been doing this whole life thing. We've been doing it. And now they're saying, yep, that's just been waiting. And now we're ready to start this next thing. They're saying, and the next now has almost begun. Is nearing in readiness, and you are starting, having, enjoying, and understanding of yourself as on the precipice. So we feel it, right? And I think even those people who are not into this, who are not on a spiritual path, which is the majority of humanity, maybe have that feeling that something is about to change, that something is shifting. The feeling of being on a precipice, right? That is like an embodied feeling. And I think that there's a lot of people who maybe have that, they're attuned to the sense of it, but don't know what it is. So the feeling that change is coming. They say, as leaning toward a next culmination in what follows, what is following. All right. And in the next paragraph, they say, we draw you now into conversation with ourselves. So I love that they say that here, because it's like, I feel like they're like pulling us close, almost like, hey, we have something to share with you that's deep and personal. Let's pull you a little closer, because this is an intimate conversation. This is personal for each of us individually. They say, into having and doings of this next now. the havings and doings of this next now, an operating understanding for yourselves you would wish. So saying, so what we would really love to have is some direction. Like we would love for them to point the way. And they're saying an operating understanding. Like, how is this going to happen? What are we supposed to do? That's an operating understanding. How do I work this thing? Where are the instructions? That's what we want. Of course we do. Of course we want that. They say to have within yourself an enjoyable perspective. Like enjoyable perspective means like, you know what's coming. You feel secure. You feel safe. That's what we want, right? A circumstantial reference by which you can navigate to draw yourself toward the pinpoint of reflection so that you may endeavor to understand. So this is why we want it. We want to have that sense of security, that sense of knowing. We want to know what's coming so that we can understand, so that we can help others, right? To be helping, to be crowned within the new reality is having arrived, so that we know we can get there, right? We want to have this operating instructions. Yes, please. That is what we want. And they say, and we would speak into this now for the purpose of your own following and foreshadowing. So they say they're going to answer this now. Great. They say, for the purpose of your own following and foreshadowing, that the next now, let me make sure I'm tuned in here. There we go. That the next now and its inhabitation comes to you readily. So great news. They're saying, don't worry about it. You're going to get there. Like you will be, as I say, crowned into the new, within the new reality. They're saying it will come to you readily, that you are on the way. You can't miss it. And they've said that before, right? So I love that they're repeating it here. It'll come to you readily, easily. It's going to happen. Don't even sweat it. And then they say, but the perspective you would share is yours alone and cannot be found or endowed or given. It must come internal. So in other words, the directions, the instruction manual for each of us is there isn't one, there's not one, which I think is a huge message, because there has been in every religion, every religion out there has a different story of this ascension, has a different story of this time that we're entering now. As far as you go back, right? I think it is, the Hopi have their prophecy about this. There's like every group of people, every culture seems to have their own story. And in each one, they talk about what this is going to look like. And for some of them, they say that people are going to be literally like driving in their car and then like evaporate and like the rest of their family is left behind. Like there's crazy things. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disparaging of any particular belief system, but there are many different views of how this can unfold. And none, they're all equally amazing. So it's wrong of me to call any of them crazy, but it's just different, something outside of the norm, something we would not expect. That would have to be a miracle, right? A miracle. And that, so there are many different interpretations, and some of them make it sound like it's going to come and just happen to each of us all at once, like this big wave of light. The big wave of light is a dramatic shift, and it will occur. We will each receive that light, but I think the key is that it'll affect each of us differently based on where we are in our journey and what's meant to happen for us. And that is the point they're making, that there isn't one answer, there isn't one recipe for any of us to follow. So they can't give us an instruction manual because, and this is the second piece of it, they say it's different for each of us, and then the second piece of it is it comes internally, that we are creating it. So there's two pieces, two critical pieces, that it's different for every one of us because of the fact that we are creating our pathway to get there. So they say, this you have borne with equanimity and understanding for long. The concept of ourselves as creating our own reality. We've known that for a long time. We've been living with it for a long time. So we know what that's like. And they're saying, so that's the piece that's not changing. They say, but to know that in the next now, in its culmination, its point of reference for yourself comes from an understanding within what is now. So in other words, that the place that we are in right now will determine the pathway that guides us to our own shift. Yeah. And then they say, within the self and what is endowed and given in harmony with this current creation. Thus, to move forward into the next now, you must start from where you are. So I think that's super, super important to know that they are offering us many shortcuts. And that is what my new Soul Convergence program, I believe that's what it is a shortcut. It is a way to get there faster. But on a shortcut, you still have to take steps, right? It's just that those steps are condensed, they're shorter, but we still have to take all the steps. There's no way around it. We can't skip it. We can't avoid it. We have to go through it. right? It's a process. And I will tell you, like having done a couple of those practice sessions already, they are like, they are deep. They're really going for it. So it's like, it's definitely going through, not around. And so that's what they say. We have to start from where we are. We have to take all of us with us. We don't get to just turn off life and be like, done, I'm leaving, turn the lights out, I'm going to the next place, I'm leaving all this behind us. Nope. We have to start from here. We have to work through to our next reality. And they go on to say, you have been happening within the self, an orchestration of growth. There has been a constant culmination with each wave of instigation, with each wave of light, which has been endowed. So in other words, we've been in a process of rapid growth. Humanity has been, and we can see this all around us. Like the massive turmoil on the planet, the poly crisis is all about growth. And it's been happening in the huge rise of social movements. That I just heard that the Nobel Peace Prize was given to I'm sorry, I can't remember, her name starts with an N. If somebody knows it, please put it in the chat. But she is a leader of human rights, specifically rights for women in Iran. And she just got the Nobel Peace Prize, which I thought, she's in prison, of course. And I thought that was amazing. Super, super, super cool. But the rise of so many different movements to try to move and shift deeply entrenched belief systems that separate people from one another. And I think that's part of it. That is evidence of our growth. I see that as evidence. And you may say, well, it's not enough. Every step matters, right? Every step forward counts. The fact that we're talking about it, the fact that it's out in the world, huge growth for humanity. And so they're saying that it has been a constant, like an orchestration of growth. There has been a constant culmination. So constant rising. Culmination is attained objective. So we have been achieving growth through this process that we've been going through. And it's been because we've been getting these extra waves of energy to help us. So, and these are not the flash, like the big light is still coming. That's the biggie, right? That's the moment, they say. So there's been lots of these, but there's one biggie that's coming. That's the one we will point to, that we will look back on and say, that's the moment everything changed, right? Oh, thank you, Teresa. Narges Mohammadi, thank you. And Narges Mohammadi is the woman who just got the Nobel Peace Prize. Super, super cool. So they go on to say, let's see, with each wave, of light, they go on to say, and you are rising, you are moving within it. You are finding yourself attuned more easily to that which comes. But the point within must still rise tomorrow, must still rise to the new beginning, and you will orient from this. So in other words, even though they're saying we're going to get there, no problem, that we don't have to sweat it, but that we are taking ourselves with us. And that's the challenge that we have to think about, that we are needing to orient from where we are now. And they're saying tons of support, it will be easier to do it, but that we can't just leave behind everything that we're embroiled in right now. We have to take it with us. We have to go through it. They go on to say, there is not an external reference point. It is what we would have your understanding become. There is not a point on the horizon that comes to call you now. It must always rise from within. Thus, the point of reference for each human, for each being, will become differently. And you will find yourself that the horizons of tomorrow are rising, are differential forms between yourselves, a sense of yourself as becoming differently. So that's the key message here, is that it will, just like our lives have each been a different path, it will continue to be a different path for each of us. And I think it is so important to know, like if it's discouraging, like if you have hoped that, like if there are things in your life that feel so entrenched that what you feel you need is to be able to turn the lights off and just leave it all behind. And if it's discouraging to hear that that's not the case, I think the hope comes in the understanding of how the angels work. And they've told us before that imagine that you see someone who's so in the depths of despair that they see no path forward. And you can imagine seeing that person, their head down, and they're so lost in thought. They've got an inner dialogue of depression, an inner dialogue of constant, whether it be self-criticism or telling themselves why it's not possible, or feeling the victim, right? Feeling like everything's against them, that it's not possible because of all these external circumstances, that they're so deeply entrenched that it feels Like even if hope was standing right in front of them, they wouldn't see it. And what the angels do when a person is in that circumstances is they breathe a breath of hope into that person's awareness. And it's almost like hitting the reset button for just a second. Like they hit the pause. If that inner dialogue is a record, they lift the needle for just a second. And in that moment, the person, it's almost like being startled out of their thinking, and they, for just a second, feel lighter, and they feel just a second, they feel like something might be possible, right? And the angels can't hold them there because the person can't, like the person has free will, number one, and they have to make a choice. They have to choose the path, but they give them the feeling that something else might be possible. And so that is how it's always been. Like that's how they've worked with us all this time. But now things have changed and their ability to bring light to the planet has expanded like exponentially. So that feeling of possibility is expanding. And as more light comes to the planet, there's more and more and more sense of things being possible. And the more we feel that things are possible, the more we are able to move through them. So even if it feels discouraging, that we can't leave it behind, know that you are better equipped, that you have more tools, that you have more support, that the potential to move through it is greater than ever. And there's going to be people all around you waiting to help, light workers ready to be in service. And you yourself are probably a light worker, but that doesn't mean we don't also need each other, that every healer needs a healer. So don't hesitate to lean on each other, right? To help you through it. Because the faster you do, the faster you can be in service to others. So, and you're serving people even on your journey as you are going through it. So, yeah, okay. All right, so let's keep going. They say there are horizons between you which are conforming. Which will be shared, which will envelop yourselves into a communal understanding of tomorrow. So they're trying to say that even though we will be different and on a different path, that there will be big aspects, just like with the collective consciousness, but this is slightly different. It is, yes, we have the collective, but this is like a shared understanding of what we're trying to achieve. Like it's almost like we talk about, amazing achievements for humanity, but I don't think any of us are like, yay, I'm human. Like that's my team. I'm on the human team. Like that's not what it is to be human right now, but it will become that. And that's what they're talking about. Like we will feel part of the human team. And so they're saying that there will be horizons between us, which are conforming, which will be shared, which will envelop yourselves into a communal understanding of tomorrow. So we will feel much more united. Then they go on to say, but even so, henceforth you will be and understand yourself as coming from a different point of reference. So they said, even though we will have that sense of connection much deeper than we've ever had or experienced in this life, we will still feel ourselves. They say, as having within yourself an origin point that is unique to yourself. They go on to say, we say this important information because, and I'm glad that they call it out as information because we may think we know this, but the important thing is for us they're trying to explain to us how it's going to be so different in a way that we have a hard time comprehending that it will be hard for us to remember what we are today. And that's what they're trying to tell us. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. Teresa's saying, I had an experience with a friend always whining. I tried to pump her up. Evidently, something I said really made her mad. I think it was her pause, but now she's not speaking to me, letting her go. She's on her own path. Oh, I totally understand what you're saying. Like when someone's not ready to feel it, it's really hard. It's like you can, what they say, lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Yeah. And I think it is when we try to push someone, they can really push back. But that doesn't mean it didn't help. You know what I mean? It's just, it's confronting for her, and confronting creates change. So that may have made all the difference and you don't even know. It's interesting the way the angels work is they convey a feeling, right? A feeling of possibility. That's the energy they give us. The feeling of hope is what they give us. It's all about with them. It's all about the feeling of hope. And sometimes that's all somebody needs is that little tiny breath of hope. Yeah. It kind of breaks your heart to think about. Like, I wish we could do that for people, but there is something important we can do for people, which is show them, like, they want us to work with people who are ready. And that is such a hard thing to think about. Like, if somebody is so deep in their own stuff, like the person you talked about, that's not your target in terms of trying to help. Your target in terms of trying to help is the person who's saying, gosh, I really want to change and I don't know how. That's the person that you can make a difference for right now. Yeah. And hopefully everybody will get there, right? I don't want everyone's invited, but everybody has to choose for themselves. Yeah. And you're saying, yes, I'm taking it that way. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is important. They're saying that where am I? They're saying the important information because in the tomorrow of your knowledge, all are forming into oneness. In the tomorrow of your knowledge, all are forming into oneness. All become yourselves in tune with one another. In the becoming, the effervescent conviviality of sharing and union that will grow between yourselves can overlap and confuse yourselves and lay dim the point of information which is yours alone. So this is, I think, the huge information they're trying to share with us, that in the future, we will be so in love with being connected and feel so connected to one another that we will think that somebody else's goals are our goals. We will think somebody else's memories are our memories. And it can be very, very confusing and become very difficult for us to navigate the path that we are meant to be on. And that, I think, is it makes perfect sense when you think about it, but it would have never occurred to me, right? And Kathy's saying, I love it when there's an unexplained joy and excitement for life that hits out of the blue. It's the angelic realm pausing me. Yes, 100%, 100%. And it's so awesome that you remember when it happens. It is so cool. And I know exactly what you're feeling. I felt it too. And it's almost like waking up for a second. You're like, you realize that you've been in this like hailstorm of crazy thoughts. And then all of a sudden it's like, it stops for a second. You're like, where am I? And it's an amazing feeling. And it's super, super cool to recognize that's hope, right? That's them. Yeah. All right. So super important information here to understand this major shift that everything we're hoping to bring in can also confuse us. And they say, and we would wish to share with you now from where you are coming, from the moment you are drawn toward that point of communal understanding, that the point of your origin is remaining always, that you are differentiated and yet the same, that you are one and yet the many, that your oneness must be attuned to because your own pathway forward is differentiated from the many. So that's really it, is they're trying to show us that we have to be both, but we have to deliberately hold on to the lessons of the experience we've been having so far of separation. And they go on to say, your origin, your main focal point for your life, for your becoming is unique and yours alone. Even after the culmination of these events, which are coming upon the horizon, you will find yourself rising differently. So the pathway is not going to be the same for everybody. The tune that calls to you now to march onward, to draw you toward an instigation of life and living in unity with one another comes for you alone. So that's what they say. They can't give us a recipe or an instruction booklet because it's going to be very, very customized for each of us based on what our goals are for ourselves. And they go on to say, and you will find yourself drawn into the fold of communal understanding and will be enveloped within it, and find the ease and reciprocity that originates here. And your understanding will be gleaned from the horizons of the many. And confusion can unfold regarding the point of your own orientation. So that is it. That is what they're trying to tell us, right? They're saying that our understanding will be gleaned from the horizons of the many, that we will become so attuned to one another that we will start to take on as our own goals the goals of the many. So imagine, when you see like in certain insect colonies, there will be like worker bees or different bees in a beehive that will sacrifice themselves completely to protect the hive, right? And that's noble and beautiful is how we see that. But to them, to the bee, the bee has sacrificed its individuality for the cause of the collective, right? It no longer values its own life. And we're not meant to become like that. And that's a big point of difference. We're not meant to be ones who say, it is, if it's a choice, if you say I value my own self, but the meaning in my life at this moment, my purpose in this life at the moment is to save all of these other people, then that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But to turn on like a robot, like a bee does, and just throw themselves at the enemy and self-sacrifice for the greater good, that is not our destiny. That's not what unity means. And that, I think, is the key that they're trying to impress upon us right now, that as mammals who live from a collective tend to do that. Like, look at all of the animals or bees or insects that have this hive mentality. and they don't have individual awareness or consciousness, and we don't want to become that. All right, going on. They say, where do you navigate toward? What is your goal? What is for you alone? Those are the questions they want us to understand. And they say, and we say, remember now, hearken these times before, while you yet remain apart in your understanding and feel so enveloped in your own journey. Right? So this is that idea. What are your unique struggles? Like, how do you understand your journey that you're on? And understand each of us has a very, very different journey, and we can identify our journey based on our struggles. Because as my friend Michael likes to say, they are not in the way, they are the way. So it is that idea that what is it, if you look at your journey as we head into, as these lights come, as these energies come to help us, if you really focus down and say, what has been the pebble stones of the pathway, the stepping stones that I've had to move through? What have been my unique wounds that I've had to solve for myself? And what are my big challenges that are still in front of me? And to hold on to that and to remember like that as your North Star, right? That is what you're moving towards still, that you need to find those obstacles even in this new unity so that you can continue to heal yourself and work on yourself and grow, even in a space where you feel totally loved and accepted. And that's the new challenge for humanity, right? Crazy thought. Okay. So they go on to say, to bring this, oops, I can't get my page to open up here. Do I have one? I do have another page. To bring this, there it is, forward, to hold this, guard this memory, that you may find it once again. So that's the idea, is hold on to it so that you can keep it even after everything shifts, even after you feel totally differently. And it's all about the feelings. And this is another big thing I wanted to share with you guys about this idea that we may think that we're going, oh, no problem. Boy, these problems I've had have been so present. There's no possible way I can forget them. But from personal experience, I will tell you, you will. I remember one time I was in, I went to a friend of mine who was a healer. I went to her workshop, and she called on me and wanted me to give a testimonial about, like, I'd had a session with her and I had healed, I'd moved some energy and healed something. And she wanted me to talk about that. And I really, really, really wanted to do that for her. And I was like, yes, I did. It was great. And I could not for the life of me remember what I healed. And so you think, oh yeah, gosh, this is so real. But it is the same thing. I will give you a very personal feeling experience of this for yourself, so you will know what I'm talking about. So, and I was just talking about this with somebody just the other day. Do you remember, like, okay, think of a time when you have worked all day long and you come home and you are exhausted and you plop on the sofa and you are thinking, oh my gosh, all I want to do is stay here and curl up in my sweats. But you have a party to go to, and the last thing you want to do is go to that party. You're just like, please let me beg off, let me cancel. And at that moment, you can't imagine having fun at that party, right? Because you don't feel it. And then you somehow manage to pull yourself off the sofa, you go to the party, and you're at the party, and within minutes, you are starting to have a great time. And then pretty soon, you are having so much fun that you can't remember what it felt like to be on the sofa. You can't imagine feeling like not being there. And the reason for that is that emotions are such a fully embodied experience that they live only in the now. Emotions have zero memory. They exist now and now only. So whatever you feel now, you imagine you will feel forever. So if you are feeling totally joyful, it will feel like, oh my gosh, this is so easy to hang on to this joy. I will feel it forever. Or if you feel super depressed, that's one of the hardest things about being depressed, is it feels like it will go on forever because you can't imagine feeling differently because it exists only in the now. It has no memory and no ability to forecast itself into the future. So when we are in the future, when we're in that state of total belonging and love, it will be very hard for us to feel what it felt to be separated. So it's hard for us to imagine that, but it's so true, you guys. It is so true. So, all right, so we go on to say, where is it? Let's see. We say this, where is it? We say this before it happens. Yeah, there it is. Oh, no, sorry, I missed this last part. To hold this, guard this memory that you may find it once again, that you may recall and hold within yourself the light of your own endowment, and may be remembered within the horizontal conformity of unity in tomorrow. All right, so they want us to hold on to that endowment, which is the gift of being separated, and then they want to be able, and then they remember it in the horizontal conformity of unity, that idea that we're all going to be the same. We say this before it happens so that you may draw inward by necessity and see that self you are and recall what was. And remember that in every instantiation of living, there is something to be guarded, something to be cared for, to be nurtured. There is always something of value in each experience of life. In this one that you are leaving, in this life and presence within which you have been embroiled. The greatest gift you will glean is your own comprehension of soul and self as separated. I love this part. The sense of yourself as living within a world permeated by yourself alone. So that is it right there. The greatest gift you glean is your own comprehension of soul and self as separated. That is what they want us to hold on to. And that we have been living in a world permeated by ourselves alone. Everything we encounter is a reflection of ourselves, and that will be changing. So that is huge. So how do we then remember to encounter ourselves? It becomes something we have to create from within. All right, this next paragraph, I put a little star next to this next one. This experience of having been unbridled in your expression, of having the folly of the all encountered as something not the self. And wow, listen to that, the folly of the all. Because we imagine that when we are in the state of unity, it will be bliss and wonderfulness. But what if the all, and we know this, what if the collective consciousness is holding beliefs or thoughts or feelings that are not awesome, right? So the folly of the all, right? There can be a downfall in unity, in oneness. What if that oneness, because we know we're not going to be perfect yet, or we would be unified with Source, so we know we're going to be a flawed oneness. So we have been enjoying the experience of being separated from that folly, right? This is definitely a different perspective, right? That I think is super important for us. The experience of having been unbridled in our own expression, right? Of having the folly of the all encountered as something not the self, that we can say, oh, I'm not that crazy thought, right? Of you have clarity of thought and purpose. That's what we can get to enjoy right now. We are clear in our thoughts, right? You have clarity of mind and memory. Huge one. What if we start to think that everybody else's memories are our memories? And how different that would make our experience be, right? No confusion have you borne of the crossing over and in between that can rise among a many who are centralizing in their thoughts and presence. And I love the fact that they use that as centralizing. It's not like centralized, that it's an ongoing process. So in other words, the idea is that we're going to have to get good at this whole centralizing thing, that it's something that we're going to be growing through doing. So we're not going to be awesome at it at first. And there may be the potential that we blend into each other's thinking. And so I think trying to hold on to that sense of who we are, of our own separation, is while also enjoying the experience of the connection, of feeling each other's feelings, but trying to say, yes, I feel you, and I feel love for you because I feel you like myself, but I also remember who I am. That's going to be the goal for us, right? Not easy. Yeah. And Sherry says, oh, how I would love to put words to feelings that come during these lives. I guess I'm not too articulate yet, only feel. But once again, thank you. Thank you deeply. Yes, you're so welcome, Sherry. And then Teresa said, I didn't imagine that all would be folly by the time we get there. I thought it would be all love and light. I know, right? Me too. And I think they say in here, it is all love and light. They say it is a blessing. Like they say it will be way beyond the happiness we have known thus far. And it makes sense because the greatest wound we all share right now is this separation, is the feeling of loneliness, right? Loneliness is the plague of humanity, and we are curing it with unity. So that's huge. But in that unity, there is still something to learn. So we're not perfect yet. So there's still something for us to be gained. And they're saying we will give ourselves a great big leg up in that process if we maintain the lessons that we've learned so far. So I think that in a nutshell is what they're trying to tell us. Yeah. So we go on to say, thus we invigorate the sense of self and oneness within. We invigorate the sense of you and who you are, and the separation which can conform and remain, while replete with the understanding of your belonging to what is shared. So that's the feeling. They want us to get all the good stuff, which is the feeling of unity and belonging and love and that telepathic connection to one another, while maintaining the sense of individual identity and understand and be the ability to think critically, to be aware, right? To maintain our individual awareness. So important. They go on to say, and what is coming, what will be enjoyed far engulfs the now in its greatness of your own enjoyments. They just said it right there, that it will be love and light, that it will be amazing. And we will feel like we've stepped so far forward in the expression of what it is to be human, right? But they're saying, right? They go on to say that there is much to be celebrated in the union with one another. So it's a really, really, really good thing. But we say, and caution the self to know, and knowing that you will be engulfed in such love and celebration that much as you may feel at the start of some new celebrated relation. So in other words, much as you might feel when you begin a new relationship, much as you may lose the self temporarily. So that idea that when you start a new relationship, sometimes you are so into that connection and the love and that feeling of like, wow, I have this new person and I feel so special to them and they're so special to me. And how you start to kind of blend and merge, and you're like, oh, I never liked lasagna before, but now I must really like it because they like it. Like when that stuff starts to happen, when you take up hobbies you would have never thought of doing because that person likes them, like, right, you start to blend. And they're saying that you lose yourself temporarily. You may feel this same ease of engulfment, but remain. They say, so in other words, when this new sense of union comes to humanity, you will feel that same feeling of being like, wow, I love this. I love everybody so much. and then they say, and you might feel that, but you might stay that way you might remain that way if you are not attuned to what is you, to what remains at the center of your soul and self. So that is the risk. That is what we need to be aware of. Yeah. So going on, they say, thus the goal for self, as your horizons change and become charged with the new potential, the horizon shifting, changing, engulfing, enveloping, welcoming you to a new endowment of shared unity, which carries with it so many treasures, right? To draw from this now what must be treasured. So in other words, it's like they were saying that in every life we live, every experience we have, there is something great that we want to hold on to. And we can build, we can collect and bring it with us. So we don't have to take the experience of being separated and then leave it behind and then have the experience of only being united, because that is the feeling of being the bee in the beehive. The goal is to collect, to take it all. That's the goal. That's why, being human, we have that advantage, that being conscious, that's what it is we get to say, great, from this life, I want to keep the feeling, my own separation. I want to keep my individuality and then draw that into the collective. Right? And know what's me and know what's them, but let myself feel the connection to them. Let me love them the way that I want to love myself, right? To have that shared feeling. To draw from this now what must be treasured, which is the self and memory of your own separation, and to draw this into the union with the all. For harmony evolves from many shared voices. So this is the harmony we're trying to create. It is a union of all of us as separated individuals, right? A frequency of one compiled of the many. That's what that is what humanity is meant to be, right? Each one celebrated as itself. So we're not meant to be a hive mind. We're meant to be a collection of unified souls who feel one another, know one another, but can also individuate. Right? Maintain your harmony within and maintain your presence externally, right? We bless you each. We say thank you and goodbye. So I think it is super important, as I was saying, and it's something that had never occurred to me. And it's like they're always saying that our awareness is so critical, because we might bumble into this thinking that it's like we don't know our problems until we have them. They're giving us the alert. They're telling us in advance, this is the risk, that we lose our clarity. And we know the feeling, if you have ever been in a wonderful new friendship, a wonderful new relationship, where you felt for a moment, or maybe there's someone in your life that when you're around them, you find that you kind of merge and blend and you lose yourself for a little while, right? That's the risk. And that we need to be aware of how important it is that we carry with us the feeling of separateness, so that we treasure and follow our own path. Yeah, so let's see, what comments did I miss, you guys? Sorry, I'm going to scroll down here. This all makes so much sense. Learning not to lose myself in others or to put others ahead of myself in a way that I become diminished has been so much of my path. Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. And me too. Right? I had, earlier in my life, I had codependent tendencies. They really didn't express them. I had two marriages. The first marriage, not so much, but the second marriage, definitely. And for me, that meant taking responsibility for someone else's emotions, feeling like I had to make everything okay for the other person. And that is a way of losing yourself, right? Losing your, like you go down a path of like where you that's, needing to understand what is me and what is you. Yeah. And they go on to say, thank you. It would, of course, be boring if we were all alike. Diversity is enjoyable. So true. So true. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys sharing these messages. Don't forget to join me on the webinars live on YouTube, which is going to be October 14th at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., October 25th, 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. If you want to have a much deeper discussion about the meta experience of this ascension and also hear more in depth about what Soul Convergence is going to be all about. So I hope you will join me live, and I will have links for those lives. They'll be on my channel, but I will have links in the description box below, so you can just click if you want to be able to get there easily at that time. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next Friday Live.